All right, good evening, folks. It is now 6 o'clock. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Mayor and Council for December the 12th, 2023. I'm going to introduce Angel Arzuega, and I'm going to ask him in just a moment to do the invocation for us. And if I could get Corbin North and Paige Tanner to go ahead and start walking over toward this podium, or they're already over here. Very good. I'm going to introduce these folks. Angel was born in Patterson, New Jersey, but was raised in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. He's been married for 18 years and has 2 children, ages 10 and 17. He has been involved in sports his whole life and has been the athletic manager for the city of Villa Rica and the recreation department for a little over a year. Corbin North is 6 years old and the son of Amber Newman. He attends Glanton Heinzman Elementary School, where he is in the 1st grade. Paige Tanner cheered for her brother's 10U football team this season. She attends Mirror Lake Elementary School, where she is in the 2nd grade. Paige is the daughter of Quebec Tanner. If I could get everyone to please rise, I'll ask Angel to lead us in the invocation, or to do the invocation for us, and then shortly thereafter we'll have the kids lead us in the pledge. Go ahead, Angel.
Let us pray. Thank you, Father, for this opportunity that you have given us to be here tonight. I ask you to bless each council member, the mayor, Father, anybody that's here representing, Father, the city. I ask you to give them wisdom, Father, and anything they decide, that it will honor you, Father, but it will also benefit this city. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, if you all will come up a little closer to the podium. You want to hand them pull that mic down. Okay. We'll let them lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hold it together. Hold it together. You ready? Good up close. You ready? Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. Y'all give them a hand. Then you may be seated. We haven't seen a crowd quite like this in a while. Tonight, we'd like to recognize the 2023 Villa Rica 6U Purple Flag football team. The co-ed team, consisting of 12 players, competed in the West Georgia Youth Sports Flag Football League, finishing the season with a perfect record. The team finished 6-0 during the regular season and captured 2 additional wins in the 6U postseason tournament hosted by the Villa Rica Recreation Department to secure the championship. The team was coached by head coach Will Mua Owl, assistants John Wallace and Jacob Cavender. That's the 6U flag football team. Tracy, you want to go ahead and call that group up?
6U flag. If you're here for 6U flag, y'all come on up.
6U flag football. Come on up. Is that all of them? Y'all give them a round of applause. Oh, here comes another one. Got more. Let's let her get a picture of you. Thank y'all. All right, 6U cheer. If you'll come up. 6U cheer. The city of Villa Rica would also like to recognize the 6U cheer team who rallied behind the football team, cheering at home and away to support the team during the season. The 6U Purple Cheer team was coached by Jerry Moo Owl. Y'all come on up here. Give them a round of applause. Thank y'all. All right, Group 2, the 10U football. 10U football, come on up. That's a bigger crowd. Wow. All right. Tonight, we would like to recognize the 2023 Villa Rica 10U Purple football team for its undefeated season. The team, consisting of 20 players, competed in the West Georgia Youth Sports League's 10U division and finished the season with a perfect record. The team compiled a 7-0 record during the regular season, scoring 219 points and allowing only 6 points. The team earned 2 additional wins in the postseason 10U Russ Collier Bowl, capturing the championship title. Combined over the 9 games, the team gave up a mere 12 points. What an accomplishment. The 10U Purple Wildcat team was coached by head coach Quebec Tanner, assistants Raymond Brooks, Marcus Irvin, and Robert Eccles. Please give them a round of applause. Excellent, excellent. All right, did we get a photo? Yes. All right, very good. Did you give them their certificates? Got them. This is a big group right here. All right, now I'm going to call up the 10U cheer. Wow, yeah, give them another round of applause. Only one? There they come. That's the reason the boys did so well, right? Very good. All right, 10U cheer. The city of Villa Rica would also like to recognize the 10U cheer team who rallied behind the football team both at home and away to support the team during the season. The 10U Purple cheer team was coached by Michelle Horner. Give them a round of applause. All right, thank y'all so much. We have certificates of achievement for each football player and cheerleader. The city of Villa Rica appreciates all the parents, players, and coaches for representing our city through the Villa Rica Recreation Department. All of our coaches will be invited to the Volunteer Appreciation Banquet in 2024. Thank you all. I'm not sure that you want to hang around for the rest of this, so I'll give you all some time to leave if you want to. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here. Just give everybody a minute to get out of here. Yeah, let's give them a minute. We didn't need any heat. No more heat. Leave the heat off. Oh, well it'll cool off in a second. Is there a line to get out? Yes, sir. That's unusual. Anybody who wants to stay now, you're welcome. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so as you may have noticed, I moved around a little bit of the agenda. Essentially, I moved the ceremonial presentations up below the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'm going to move to the adoption of the agenda. I don't believe there are any modifications, so is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
That's a tie.
Second.
I'm going to give Mr. Carter the motion to adopt and Ms. Marchman the second. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right. The next item up is public comment. Did anybody sign up for public comment? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kenneth Davis. Are you here to speak in public comment or on an item, sir?
Speak if I want to or not. When the heck goes, what I learned. I'd like to know more about the creek.
Okay, so let me clarify that. So we're going to have a public hearing on each of these items, and the one you're talking about there. At that time, if you choose to make comments, then I'll open up the floor for that particular item. Is that okay? Yep. So we'll skip you right here, and then we'll come back to that. Michael Young. Mr. Young, if you'll give us your name and address for the record, we'll give you 3 minutes, sir.
Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive, Villa Rica. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joseph de Maistre wrote in 1811, "Every nation has the government it deserves." On December 5th, Villa Rica proved the point. Only about 1,100 people voted in the mayoral runoff election, and the majority of them voted for a candidate whose campaign kickoff defamed the individual sitting in front of me. In good conscience, I cannot support nor be a part of an administration that resorts to slurs of criminal activity to win an election. Therefore, I am effective immediately. I am resigning my positions on the Recreation Advisory Commission, the Villa Rica Housing Authority Board, and the Villa Rica Downtown Development Authority. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That is regrettable. All right, I don't have anybody else on the list. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in public comments who did not sign up? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comments portion of the meeting, and I will move to council updates. Are there any council members who would like to be recognized? Okay. I have some remarks that I will make tonight, but I will save those until later in the meeting. And I'll take that up at a different time. Let me move on to the consent agenda. Earlier today in a work session, the council met and discussed all of the items that I'm about to review, and it was at that time there was no objection to all of these items being placed on the consent agenda. I'll read through these, then I'll ask if there are any objections, and if there are none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Consent item number 1, Planning and Zoning Commission appointments of Kendrick Davis for Ward 1 and David Rogers for Ward 2. Consent number 2, Housing Authority reappointment of Amelie Woodall. Consent number 3, Villa Rica Development Authority appointment of Rusty Dean. Consent number 4, alcohol beverage license for Arpit Nilesh Patel. Consent number 5, 2023 personnel policy revision. Consent number 6, updated employee incentive pay. Consent number 7, replacement of servers. Consent number 8, SAN replacement. Consent number 9, flock camera grant. Consent number 10, purchase of 2023 F-150 for distribution. Consent number 11, fiscal year 23 budget amendments number 180 through 188. Consent number 12, fiscal year 24 budget amendment 16 through 168. Consent number 13, write-off customer receivables. Consent number 14, audio-video equipment purchase. Consent number 15, street design coordination with BM&K. Consent number 16, survey required for construction of Villa Rica Parkway. Consent number 17, amendment to South Street improvements with Georgia and West Inc. And consent number 18, relocation of the WIC office to Powell Park. Are there any objections to any of those items? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Have a motion from Ms. Marchman to adopt the consent agenda as
Second.
presented. A second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? That's unanimous. Council, you have before you, or you've had an opportunity to review meeting minutes from April the 14th, from November the 14th, 2023. Are there any amendments to those? And if not, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 14th, 2023? I have a motion from Ms. Marchman to approve the meeting minutes of November the 14th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? That's unanimous. You have also had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes of the special called meeting from November the 29th, 2023. Are there any amendments? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the November 29, 2023 special called city meeting minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Momtahan, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, let's move on to community development. Is the applicant here for this item? Okay. All right, community development B1 VA-12-23. This is 133 West Bankhead Highway. This is a variance to reduce drive-through queuing spaces, and there'll be a public hearing on this item. Ron?
Good evening, everyone. Charles Bishop has applied for a variance from section 7.0215B of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance. This is to be located at 133 West Bankhead Highway. You may commonly know it as the snow cone, established Pelican snow cones. The request here is to reduce the number of required restaurant drive-through queuing spaces from the required 7 required spaces. So the staff did recommend denial in this case in search of some more information, but we considered it to be self-imposed. So the applicant is here. He, I'm sure, can fill in some more information on this case.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Ron on this? All right, I would like to hear from the applicant.
Sure.
Sir, if you would come up, give us your name and address.
Charles Bishop, address is 421 Tennessee Avenue, Bremen, Georgia.
If you would, just briefly tell us what it is that you're seeking here today and why.
So we want to open a drive-through to just better serve the community. I'd put the drive-through window in before I realized that there was a minimum queuing. For our business, we're not that busy, and we're pretty fast at serving our product. So,
is the only thing you do there is that snow cones?
yes, it's all shaved ice. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have more than one location, though, right?
Yes, sir.
Do any of your other locations have a drive-through?
The Villa Rica, the Noonan location has one.
And what do you see a number of? I'm sure you haven't heard the term queuing spaces a whole lot, except when it comes to this. But you just mentioned that you are pretty quick service there.
Yes, sir.
How many vehicles would you see stacked up there when it was pretty busy?
In the summer, we opened noon was our busiest, and we had maybe 5, 6 at max, and that was our peak. And then once the new wears off, we slow down a bit, and it's pretty much just our usual customer, so to speak.
Okay.
But no, we don't have a huge backup there either. It's an old bank, and there's just not room in our parking lot. If you've seen it, you would know. But
Yeah, I don't know where it is. Is that in downtown?
it's right out of downtown. It's a couple miles out of the downtown area.
It is, okay. All right. So, but what you are seeking here is a variance from the required number of queuing spaces, because essentially, to get that done, you would have had to buy or pay for a new site plan to count out those spaces. Is that correct?
Apparently, you have so many feet per car, and the way our property is laid out, we would almost have to use the neighboring property
To accommodate
have
that
seven,
number of
even
cars.
though my landlord owns both properties, and he's okay with that, but we just want to get clearance otherwise.
You just want to make sure you were clear to be able to do this.
Yes, sir.
All right, counsel, do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Montahan?
Yes, Mr. Bishop. So how many cars can fit on your property, just on your side of the property currently? I mean, in the queuing space for the drive-through, basically, not for
As
like,
is, just the
as
drive-through.
is, right?
I believe we could get 5 in there.
Okay, and the requirement is 7.
Yes, sir.
And so, at your in your experience at the Noonan location, you said you usually get 5 or 6.
That was our peak.
At the peak.
The
What do you
summer we
get?
first opened.
What do you get on now that you're kind of in the?
They just kind of come through. It's a slow drip, So
Do you-
basically, right after school is our rush, and we get 3 or 4.
At a
But like I
time?
said, they're moving pretty quick.
Okay, so you might stack 3 cars at one time. Now.
Yes.
Okay.
Currently, it's not open though, right?
We close for December and January.
Well, I don't mean the shop, but the window. Isn't there a
Oh,
sign
yeah,
on
we
the
haven't
window
used-
that
we have-
says closed per the city?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We never used it.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Carter?
Are you aware that we have 2 options here? The one to approve has conditions on it. Have you seen those conditions?
I have not seen it.
Well, could we talk about those real quick, Ron? Let's see, if you wouldn't mind, because I didn't know that you had not seen these. Let's see what they are. So you have options here that you would recommend.
Yes.
That if there were going to be an approval, these would be the conditions that you would like the council to consider.
That's correct,
So
yes.
go over those for us real quick.
Sure, yeah. So the first one that we have here is the drive-through can only be used for restaurant use. Should another use occupy the property, a request for a special use permit shall be required. And so obviously we can't all tell the future, so we don't want to approve a drive-through use that would be essentially permanent there and used for other restaurant uses that may not have that slow drip that the applicant spoke to a few minutes ago. The second one there is the drive-through must be adequately lit, paved with a hard dustless material, and properly demarcated. And that's just for simple site safety purposes. And the third one is all entrance and exit standards will continue to apply to the property, including but not limited to curbing, paving, driveway queuing distances, and driveway entrance width. The applicant must demonstrate that these standards have been achieved. So in lieu of a site plan, I think that demonstration would just simply come from us going out onto the property just to inspect it to ensure that it actually does meet the ordinance requirements.
Okay. Mr. Bishop, now that you've heard those, tell the council what of those would be a hardship, or what you would,
Well, if
if there's an issue.
If we close the doors and another business moves in, I can see them having to get the special permit required to keep it. That's no problem. The drive-through lit and paved, it is adequately lit at this time, and it recently has been paved
Okay.
with asphalt. And I'm not sure about that last one, on what that means.
Lines, like, it has to have some sort of like
You want-
arrows. I'm sorry,
Right.
I gotta use the mic. Like for example, arrows for entrance. For example, some where the drive-through actually starts and stops. Usually, with most drive-throughs, there's like a long white line, for example, on each side of the driveway area, just to, so people know for
Just
safety
marking.
purposes. Just markings.
So
Yeah.
that
Right.
you can tell the driveway. But he's not talking
I
about
was
that.
referring
He's talking
to
about
the
the third one.
Oh.
That big paragraph.
Yes.
So tell him what that means in plain English.
Sure, yeah. So basically all of the other, we have obviously driveway standards in the city and drive-through standards. And as a part of that, the zoning ordinance would require, like we talked about the paving a few moments ago, it would require queuing distances for each vehicle, like the lengths of each vehicle. one after another. So we would need to be able to demonstrate those distances in some way, and usually that would be done on a site plan. But in lieu of him being able to be able to get one of those site plans, we would be able to go out there and basically inspect the property in those cases. So the other one there, it says driveway entrance width. So we do have some width requirements just for standardized throughout the city for all commercial uses. And so I believe that's set at 12 feet across for one driveway. It's similar to a driving width for a road lane. So that would just need to, basically the driveway would just need to be 12 feet wide, essentially, so.
Okay, well, that sounds much more simple than when you read it off, because I'm not real sure how he would be putting in curbing here. This is a shared property line, and there's not a great amount of distance between his store and this window and the next property. I don't really see how curbing's going in there.
I'll have to leave that to the city council to
Okay.
decide.
So in my estimation, I would want to be a little bit more strict about the first option there and say that if it became anything other than a snow cone or shaved ice place, not just like you couldn't just start selling chicken wings and
What'd you say happened?
He just fell over.
You will call somebody?
All right, folks, I'm going to call us back into session, but let me just ask the council if you are prepared to move on this, or if we want to table this again. We've looked at this, this is the third month in a row. We pretty much know the background on this. Is there anybody, what's the mood? Somebody want to table it, or do you want to try to approve it in some way?
I guess the question is, the problem with putting in the curbing and all, not having enough distance.
What I was going to suggest, if the council was interested in it, is change the first condition to make it the snow cone only place, and then just, I would say, do away with this third piece, because I don't see how that's going to be helpful to what he's trying to do. If y'all could, if a council member would be interested in doing that, I think that could do this for him.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to forget, I don't think we had a public hearing on this, I know.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Let's make sure we check
and
that box.
I'll do that. All right, council, consider that. I got thrown off a bit, so let's do this. Let's have a public hearing on this item. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this this variance to reduce these drive-through queuing spaces? Okay. Somebody does? Sir, would you like to? Yeah, well, you have to come up here, give us your name and address for the record, and then we will hear from you.
My name is Mitchell Hamilton.
I knew
live at 90 Oak Walk.
I haven't seen you since we were kids.
I know it.
All right, go
so
ahead.
I own the property in question, so
Yes, sir.
I can shed a little bit of information on that. I repaved both properties just last week. And in reference to the first part of not 7, I'm assuming that's cars in the line.
Yes, sir.
I can make 7 cars work with the property that I have with drive lanes. So I would like it to be for future use potentially too. I don't want to kill this deal over that, but I know I can make 10 cars work in the property that I have, because the back of those buildings just don't get used. So I could put the drive lane started. I just know I can do it and meet y'all's qualifications with that.
In terms, you're saying you wouldn't need a variance for the 7 spaces.
That's right.
So if you didn't need a variance for the 7 spaces, and David, you can jump in here, then even if we granted it the way that I just described, you wouldn't have to come back because you could meet the
That's
requirement.
Right. That's
I
right.
agree with that.
Okay. So if that's acceptable to you, then maybe that's how these guys will see it too.
Okay.
Is that?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Because if you can meet the minimum requirement anyway, you don't have to come here.
Okay. And I've got the arrows painted on there. I wasn't aware of striping, but that can be done in a couple of days.
Sure.
From now, so whatever I need to do to make that happen.
Well, great. I haven't had a chance to get by there and see that. It must have gotten done
Looks
just
really good.
recently. Good. I'll come by and look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Carter.
I will move to approve the requested variance with the 2 conditions that a drive-through can be used only for the snow cone business, and a drive-through must be adequately lit, paved, and a hard surface dustless material and properly demarcated.
All right, have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second? Have a second from Ms. Marchman. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Warman.
Gil.
I'm terrible. Look, it takes time. You have to get used to seeing. She's only been on this council for what, 2 sessions, maybe 3. It's all my fault.
Right.
It's all my fault, but I get tongue-tied. All right, Miss
Okay,
Warman.
look, you've totally thrown me off now. Okay, hang on. So I thought that he was able to meet the requirements without the variance.
He would be, but for the use of the snow cone and to get this resolved tonight, we need to go ahead and grant the variance. But if he has another use in the future, he's saying he could meet those requirements without a variance, so he wouldn't need to come back.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mr.
So-
Moptahan.
Just so I get clarification, I don't really have any opposition to Councilman Carter's motion, except are we just basically, it's just less than 7? We're not reducing it to a certain number? Because I feel like with the Little Caesars thing, we reduced it to a certain number.
We did, but we had a site plan on that one. Here,
Okay.
we don't even know what the number is.
Okay.
And what we've done is waive the requirement for the site plan.
Okay, all right, so
All
less
right,
than
anybody
7.
else? All right, all in favor?
Let him-
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell. Good seeing you. All right, let's go on to B2, VA-14-23. This is 2 variances from Townhome Architectural Design Standards, Section 9.03 on Mirror Lake Boulevard. This item will also have a public hearing. Ron?
Yes. This is an application from Flournoy Development. If we remember at the last council meeting, this item was tabled, but they're requesting 2 variances from section 9.038, automobile storage, to reduce the garage door amount from 2 to 1, and section 9.034F, driveway depth. And this is for a 56-unit townhome development. And so as a part of the request, the reduction from 2 to 1 in garage doors, the number of garage doors, the city council approved the request at the last meeting, subject to the fact that a master bedroom would have to be on the main level of each of the townhome units. And the applicant has indicated since that time that they're unable to fulfill that request or do master on main for townhomes. And so they have asked the city council to look at that ordinance condition, that approval condition. And also for the driveway widths, driveway lengths. We have a requirement for 35 feet, and they're looking to have a reduction down to 23 feet in the driveway lengths. And so, based off of the work session that we had earlier today, I was able to come up with some different approval conditions as well, if that's something that the city council is interested in entertaining. So there's a total of 6 of them there on the cover sheet. And would you like me to go over each of these 6? Or?
No, because let's first hear from the applicant. We'll see if council has any questions, but then I'd like to hear from the applicant so that we can get clarification on where they're trying to go with this, and then we'll come back to possible conditions that may help us get there. First off, though, council, do you have any questions for Ron before I hear from the applicant? All right, is the applicant present? There he is. Come on up here, sir. Give us your name and address for the record, and then we'll hear from you.
Yeah, hey, good evening. My name is Luke Addison with Flournoy Development Group, 2401 Craigston Drive, Columbus, Georgia.
All right, go ahead.
As Mr. Johnson stated, we were here last month seeking the 2 variances, and it was apparent through the meeting and through feedback from council members that obviously a major concern here was parking and the monitoring of the parking, how that would be governed, and private streets versus public streets. So one thing that I would like to add that was not mentioned in last month's meeting was that these roads and infrastructure will be 100% private and maintained fully by us, the owner. That will be I think everybody's aware that we have an apartment project that's already been approved that's adjacent to this property. So we will fully manage all of the parking as well as the infrastructure and own that as well. So as far as helping with managing that, we'll have private drive signs. We'll have no trespassing signs. We'll have violators will be towed at the owner's expense. So basically anything that we can do, obviously, to deter parking issues. And I think I stated in last month's meeting that obviously a project for us is not successful if we have parking issues. So obviously it's of the utmost importance to us to make sure that that's managed very well, that we plan for that accordingly. And we believe that by the streets and the infrastructure of this townhome development being 100% private, we feel like that we can alleviate or at least mitigate some of the concern of city staff and council based on the feedback we received from last month's meeting.
Okay, so what you did say last month was that it would be private. So I assumed from that it would be private streets and private infrastructure. Did I ask you, or were you asked last month whether this would be gated?
We discussed gates, yes, and I guess I would ask for clarification on your first statement, Mayor. As I recall, Mr. Johnson at one point in time came up and asked if we would consider the roads and the infrastructure being private. And at that point in time, I was not ready to commit to doing so. And so I think that was sort of later in the conversation, but it was also in tandem with the conversation about gates.
Okay.
That's at least as best I can recall.
Okay. But tonight, are you saying that they would be private roads and gates?
We're proposing that there would not be gates. We would prefer for this to not be a gated community. It would in fact be private, and again, it would be stated that it would be private by using signage. But for the connectivity and really the overall intent, initial design intent of the community, our intent has always been that it would be open and non-gated.
Okay. So last month, the big concern did revolve around parking, but it revolved around the fact that you have 3 bedroom units here and 1 car garage. And I said, and I don't know if we have the elevations. I remember saying that I really like those elevations with a 1 car garage, which I typically oppose. But because they are 24 foot wide units, they looked really good. So I think from the elevation standpoint, I felt really good about it, and I think the council did. What helped to make it a better product was when you said that you would have the master on the main. But what really helped us with this parking issue and this shortened driveway, even though we didn't resolve that, was that you were going to maintain and have private roads and a gate. The difference between the gate and just private roads is that everything that occurs inside that gate is essentially your problem. You talked about it a minute ago. In private business, you need to be able to have a product that you can rent out or that you can sell or whatever you ultimately end up doing with it. And I trust that makes sense. I mean, that makes good business sense. But with the gate, it guarantees that it stays your problem and it doesn't become the city's problem. Because I'm concerned with these short driveways in this single car garage and 3 bedrooms. Are you following what I'm saying? That seems to me like we're going to have 2 cars or more in every one of these units, more likely than not. And I think that's really the concern here of the council.
Well, and I think we discussed this last month that we've done similar townhomes in other markets and other developments, and have been very successful doing that. I certainly understand the position and the concern of the parking. I think that there's potentially been a little bit of a disconnect or misunderstanding on my end as far as what gates would actually accomplish if everything was in fact private. So I believed that we were by taking on ownership and maintaining the private drives, that would hopefully satisfy council tonight, was our hope.
It blurs the lines, though, when there are no gates between what is private and what's not private. And the other thing is that what I would typically expect to find is people parking all along the side of that street, all the way out of what would be gates, if there are no gates there. If there were gates, there'd be a finite place where the public would understand where they can go and where they can't go in terms of that development. I'm not the only one here. That's what I recall. Those are my concerns. Let me see if council has any questions for you. Mr. Momtahan.
Yes, Mr. Addison. So I personally, I'm not it doesn't really matter to me whether or not it has the gates or not. These stipulations call for the roadway having a 12-foot travel lane with a total of 24-foot both ways, with an additional lane for parallel parking. Would you be, and that's just one single additional lane, from my perspective, in lieu of installing the gates, would you be okay with a second lane for parallel parking to basically guarantee one parallel parking spot per unit in addition to the driveway and the driveway, what the spot that would be in the driveway, then of course whatever would be parked in the garage?
So what I can say to that is these conditions were presented to me within the last couple of days, and having limited time to get with our civil engineer to try to weigh those options and see how that may operate and may work. Obviously, it was a challenge to make sure that we could accommodate the condition that was put before us, because from my position, I always like to approach these things as collaborative efforts and figuring out, because obviously we want to work together and we want to provide a community that's beneficial and one that we all can be proud of. I did become concerned with initial feedback from our civil engineer that what that does to the site plan with the amount of time that we've already put into the site plan, it would compromise it in certain ways. One of the items that did come up when we started to entertain the idea of adding parallel spaces was what we've done, and some of the early feedback that we got from our pre-application meeting with city staff was the need and the desire for additional parking spaces, as well as the desire for additional green space. So at that point in time, we were able to tweak our site plan and add an additional 48 parking spaces on the site, which we felt like would help the overflow parking tremendously. My concern for the parallel parking was that then required the reduction of those 48 parking spaces in certain areas. It required the removal of those parking spaces to where we were only able to get, I believe, 24 parallel parking spaces. So we lost almost half of what we previously had. So I would not love to go down that road, honestly, because it just starts to mess with a site plan that we've really vetted and worked on, and put resources into, that I would be afraid we would compromise.
My recollection, though, and I think what the council's concern was with the site plan that you presented, was that the majority of those 48 spots were on basically one end of the development, while the remainder of the spots were, basically not accessible, and so they were never going to be used by half or more than half of the other residents. And I think the idea of putting them, even though it may be less spots, and that's if it's single lane, I assume that you would have 24 spots, but if you add the additional lane, do you know offhand how many spots?
The scenario that we looked at was, now when you're saying single lane, are you just referring to basically along one drive?
Essentially, right, on one side of the drive.
Okay.
And I think what I'm trying to see if you'd be willing to do is add an additional lane of parallel parking spots. So essentially at both sides of the street have a a lane designated for parallel parking.
So where would you be proposing that be done?
I mean, so it just essentially, again, it'd be just along your townhome here, so on both sides. I mean, any area of the street that has frontage, or any basically in front of any townhome where there's a frontage, you would basically have that almost a designated parallel parking spot in addition to your driveway spot, and then in addition to your garage spot for cars. So, in theory, you could fit up to 3 vehicles, which seems appropriate for a 3-bedroom product. So, and I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I think the issue, like I said before, is that the majority of your 48 spots are basically on the north side of that development and not accessible. And so even if you end up with less than 48 spots under this dual lane proposal that I'm trying to come up with, I think you have a better use of the spots. So the distribution you may not get 48, but you get a better distribution, which means it'll actually be used.
So when we looked at trying to entertain figuring out where all the parallel parking spaces could potentially go, we're still, the most challenging part of our site plan here is the planned south portion of our site, because we are dealing with some setback lines there. So that portion of the site is tight. Where we were able to get additional parallel parking spaces, it was more saturated on the planned north part of the site. So we really didn't feel like that with the combination of the loss of those spaces and with the distribution of the location of those spaces, we didn't really feel like that was going to accomplish what you all were looking for based on feedback. So I would simply go back to when we added the additional parking, we really saw that as overflow parking, not really for residents. We saw it for overflow parking, and we feel like that 3 spaces per unit is very high and aggressive. And again, we've done communities like this in townhome developments in other markets, and I'll remember the first one that we did. We were a little bit concerned that, okay, well, if I park in the garage and my wife parks behind me or my roommate parks behind me, then I'm going to have to move one car for another car to get out. We saw no evidence of that hurting the development at all. We didn't have any overflow parking, and it's just worked. And we believe that this will work. Again, if we felt like that there was going to be a parking issue, then we wouldn't be planning to do this and putting this project here in front of you. And I would just reemphasize that the parking issues or the parking concern will be 100% our responsibility. And we'll have signage throughout the property. We'll have phone numbers on signage. We'll be managing it 100%. That's how we feel about that.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Ms. McCoy?
Have you ever gone through a gate and it not be, unless it's like a park, don't most gates designate private property? So my concern is, how can we have a private drive, private parking or whatever without a gate?
I think it would simply just be designated as a private drive and managed that way. I don't think that I don't think you have to have a gate for a road to be private. Am I understanding your question?
That's my
Greg?
question. Usually if something's private, there's a gate in front of it.
We've done developments that, and we're not opposed to gates. We just look at every development we do and we try to figure out, hey, is this a fit for a gate or not? And it's been our personal belief. Again, we're developing the apartment project as well. We see this as one community, and we want it to feel that way. It's very walkable. You've got Publix right up the road. There's sidewalks where we envision residents leaving their townhome and walking on the sidewalks to go to Publix and walking home. And we just feel like that it creates a more inviting and less exclusive community without having the gates.
Okay. And I also, too, listening to the whole thing about parallel parking and everything, wouldn't this be redundant if you just did the 2-car garage? Since you're not doing the master on the main anymore, what is the reasoning for not doing the 2-car garage? Now, I do agree with the mayor that the 1-car looks better, but what's stopping y'all from doing the 2-car garage?
We dug into this a little bit last month, and it really has to do with the building footprint and the square footage that we feel like is viable in the market and the rent that we're planning to market these units for. And really, the huge deterrence for the 2-car garage, you mentioned the single-car garage, I think everyone agreed looks much better so that you don't have the sea of garage doors as you drive down here. But also the functionality of the floor plan, I think I described with the 2-car garage and trying to keep the building footprints the same. You have what I called as the bowling alley entry hallway, and it really just ate into the living area of that main floor. And so we did, when we were first designing this project, we looked at both options. And it was just, there was no question in our mind and in our designer's mind, our architect's mind, that the single-car garage was a much more attractive and much more viable and practical product.
Well, since we're not using the space for a master on the main, what is the space going to be used for now?
So you've got the front window is a little office area. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the hallway, and then you've got the kitchen and the living area, and then the stairwell that leads up to the second floor.
And there will be 3 bedrooms on the second floor?
2 or 3, yes.
Okay, what's the price point of these for rental, or do you know yet?
On average, around $3,000 a month.
Okay, so basically no one's going to be able to live there by themselves. They'll have to have a roommate, or they'll have to be a 2-income family.
Well, if, I guess that gets into who our market audience is. And I guess one thing I will say is that there is full expectation on our part that there will be people that will work in Atlanta commuting that are looking to live in a suburb of Atlanta. And we've got Noel Consulting Group, who's a familiar and reputable group out of Atlanta to run a market study for us. And there is the expectation that there will be employment in Atlanta who live in these townhomes. Certainly not exclusively, but that is the expectation.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Carter?
Okay, looking at your presentation here, I do believe the one-car garage is by far prettier, nicer looking than a two-car garage. But also in your presentation, I see a car parked out on the street, and I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. Once you park cars on both sides of the road, which you got apartments on both sides, those extra cars are going to create a one-lane road. And I'd like to go back and see some of your previous projects in the afternoon after everybody's arrived back home and see if that's not the case, because I do believe people are going to end up parking on the street in order not to block the one in that's inside the garage.
All right. Was that a question? All right. Ms. Warmoth?
Look at
I
you.
did good.
Good job. So I guess I keep hearing everybody talk about how aesthetically pleasing this is, but just because it's pretty doesn't mean that it actually makes sense. And kind of how Councilwoman McCoy.
See how that works? You see how that works?
Karma.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. How she had mentioned, if you've got this many people living in the home, you're going to have more than just one driver. So I'm not understanding how you think this is going to work out, where people are not parking on the street.
Well, I would say that I think that if people park on the street, that's 100% our responsibility. It's not the city's. Secondly, we do feel comfortable with the overflow parking, that we're providing the spaces for additional cars to park there. And again, there's certainly, I can't stand here today and guarantee you that there's not going to be somebody that ever parks on the street. What I can tell you and assure you is we will own the streets. It's private streets. We will manage it. We will have signage that makes it very clear that these are private driveways. It's a private community. And when there is an issue, we will be the ones to hear about it, and the city of Villa Rica will not.
Okay. Anybody else? Tom?
Remind me what the 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom split is? Roughly?
Believe it's 42. Hang on, I've got that written down.
It's 56.
Well, it's 40.
56 total.
42 bedrooms and 16 3-beds.
Okay, I don't think we certainly haven't discussed that here. So you have 42 bedrooms.
Correct.
And 16 3-bedrooms.
Correct.
So are the 3 bedrooms going to be on the streets without a facing building of townhomes?
Can you ask that again, please?
Like the bottom row of townhomes
Uh-huh.
is facing a row of townhomes, right?
Correct.
But like the top left-hand one is not.
I think he's asking, are you going to have basically like a cluster, here's all your 3 bedrooms, and are they going to be positioned where this overflow parking is, or are they going to be kind of dispersed throughout the development?
Like if you put all the 3s in that top row, then we're sort of talking about something that's not going to happen.
Right, because you have built-in overflow parking for the units that are
For
most
the ones-
likely to have
Anyway,
overflow.
So that's one question. The other one is, in your experience with this kind of development, how often does someone who's not a roommate situation but a couple live in one of these long enough to have a third driver? Because it looks to me like the design of the development makes people in that situation move. Like you wouldn't stay here until you had a child and that was 16.
Doesn't it kind of,
Like the parking issue would almost make you move, and it's a rental, so who cares, right? You just go to a different place. You go rent a house or whatever. So is that your experience?
I guess
Have you
my
had one
question
of
would
these
be,
for so long that you've had high school kids grow up in one of these?
That would probably be a better question for our management company, but I know I'm sure that does happen. I'm sure that.
It takes a long time, though.
well, may I ask, do you have the information or the data on the average age of your tenants? Or the folks, the market, I mean, that you're referring to? I mean,
On what's
I mean, yeah, I mean,
suggested
that's
in
who
this
you're
community?
targeting, and what's the average age of the market you're targeting?
I don't have that information present with me.
Because I think some of that goes to kind of Tom's point. If we're talking about folks in their 30s to 40s or 50s, and they may have adult children or young adult children who may be driving, if we're talking about somebody in their younger, lower 30s or the late 20s, then we may, we probably don't have that issue. And then we're only dealing with two drivers versus a high school kid that's going to have to drive. And I think that's kind of what he's getting to.
Well, I think our expectation would be certainly there could be a family that ages out of this unit. And that, as you mentioned, that's normal. I mean, we see that in our apartments as well. But I guess I continue to go back to the additional parking and the overflow parking. If there is a family that they've got 3 cars and they just love it so much that they want to stay and live here, then they'll use one of those parking spaces, and that'll be a decision that they make. I mean, that's a decision that we're comfortable with, and based on the market study that we've had provided to us, we feel confident. And our market study suggests that what we've provided here is sufficient for 56 units here.
All right, so third question is, if this is all rental and you're managing it, what happens when you sell units?
We would not be able to sell.
Why?
It's all rental. This is all one.
That's not a law.
Well, is it tied to financing or something like that?
Because if you sell some of these, then who maintains the place?
Well, that I would say I would be happy to commit right now that we would not sell any of these units.
Yeah, that's not legal either, though.
Well, there is. I mean, I think David would object to that.
I think
the fact that he
there is a
owns
way.
the infrastructure
Yeah,
is
we can
going
talk
to
about
give.
Dollar General then.
But I mean, the fact that they are responsible for the infrastructure, there's going to have to be an entity in place that will manage this, and to overcome that, you couldn't just go in and sell off individual units. There'd have to be a master plan to make that change. I mean, I don't see how that would work, and not to mention the fact that deeds would be written like that, the lending on it would be written like that. It wouldn't be easy to do.
I think you almost have to go through a condominium process to be able to split up a sole track like that, and it's a complicated process to do it.
But I think just from my experience, I think that's why some jurisdictions have they'll have a townhome or a multifamily or something like this, but it'll have a fee simple and a non-fee simple as 2 separate zoning categories. So you would have to go back and get it zoned to make it fee simple. We don't have that in Billerica. I've thought about that.
We put that on here as a condition.
That's above our pay grade. Well, let me. I don't know. David can noodle on that for a second. Let me try to cut through some of this, because now that you have clarified that you've got 40 units that are 2 bedrooms and you've got 16 units that are 3 bedrooms, I'm less concerned with the parking than I was when you had the 3 bedrooms, because it was clear to me that we were going to have a lot of 2 and 3 car units. The other thing is that if you had said you were going to put the gates up, that clears the deck for me. And these guys are the ones that are going to have to vote on it, but that clears the deck for me. But now that I'm getting a better image and I've heard you say it at least 3 times, that you've done the market study and you guys know better than we do and all that kind of stuff, who your tenants are going to be, who you're catering to, and how your development works. And I'm buying some of that a little bit more now, because I do think that if you situate this development in such a way that the 3 bedrooms are more tilted toward where you already have the additional parking, you probably are going to resolve the parking issue. And you've made it clear that it's your roads, and you'll figure out how to deal with that. So I'm less inclined to be concerned about that. But I need to do a public hearing. Is there anybody, do any of you have any questions for the applicant before I do this public hearing? Just
Well, let me,
to wrap up.
again, like I said before, I'm not really enthralled by the idea of the gates. I like the idea of the free flow and the connectivity. And I think that's kind of what we envision in the Fuqua project overall. So, however, that being said, maybe in my perspective, in lieu of the gates, I would ask that he submit for review the signage and that we have some determination on the appropriateness of it and whether we think it's going to be effective in notifying them. And that would be kind of my thought in lieu of the
In terms
gates.
of clarifying
And-
that these
right.
are private streets and that
Correct.
we're responsible, that, they are responsible and not the city. Yeah. Okay, let me, we'll come back to you in a minute. I need to do a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against these 2 variances? Now that you've heard an hour of conversation? Nobody? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Let's revert back to staff. Ron, if you'll come back now, let's talk about those conditions that you were offering.
And some of these may or may not be moved at this point, but the first one that I had listed here was the development shall have gated entry and exit. Second is the developer shall maintain all infrastructure, right-of-ways, sewer, water, and refuse services as private. The developer shall be responsible for all billing for these services. Number 3, a compactor, dumpster, or compact hauler shall be required for the development, and the developer shall be responsible for all billing services to residents. Number 4, the developer shall be responsible to install master meters for all water and sewer infrastructure. Number 5, all roadways shall have 12-foot travel lanes for a total of 24 feet with an additional lane for parallel parking along each street. And number 6, all elevations and written commitments shall be entered into the legal record and shall be substantially representative of the finished product. Any substantial changes in material, percentages of facade treatments, windows, doors, roof lines, and etc. are subject to council consideration, to which a variance is required.
All right, let me first ask you, have you seen these?
Not as they're written, no.
Okay, well, let's do this. I already know about the gate. Tell me about the next ones. Do you intend to have a master meter
Yes.
here, or do you intend, okay. So you don't intend to meter each of these?
They will be individually meters. We, in the past, have also done a master meter at times, but we will individually meter at least the buildings.
You'd have both
You'd have both here?
in this situation.
Okay. What about the trash compactor, the dumpster?
That will be provided
So
and managed by us.
these will not have individual curbside service?
That's up to him.
Okay.
We typically have valet service for our units,
And
our
so you
our apartment
provide-
units, so we would provide valet here as well.
Okay. Roadway shall have 12-foot travel lanes for a total of 24 foot with an additional lane for parallel parking along each street. That's actually what the councilman was asking you about when we started this.
Yeah, I was asking about an additional lane in addition to
In
what's
addition
proposed
to
here.
this one
So
already?
2 lanes, correct.
Okay.
Is that gone now?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not as insignificant if there's only 16 units that are 3-bedroom.
But were you already planning to do the one?
No,
No.
Can you do one?
I don't think so.
Not universally.
Correct.
Are there places where you could?
There may be places we can add a couple of parallel parking spaces, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, when we tried to look at that, we didn't feel like that helped really to address the concern.
Okay. All right. And then all elevations and written commitments shall be entered into the legal record and shall be substantially representative of the finished product. Any substantial changes in materials, percentages of facade treatments, windows, Anyway, this says everything you tell us that you're going to do here, we're going to put it into the record and make sure that we hold you to that.
Yes.
You familiar with that?
Yep.
All right, counsel, you have any more? Mr. Carter?
Yeah. How wide, the ones on the bottom where there's no extra parking, how wide are those streets? Can you get 3 cars through there at one time? Because if you have one parked on each side of the road, you got one lane down the middle, can 3 cars go through?
How wide are the roads? Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking? They're 24 feet.
24 feet, is that enough? Ron, is that enough to get 3 cars? If you have one parked on each side of the road in front of their apartment, it leaves you one lane down the middle. Is that sufficient?
But he's not proposing that he would put any of those parallel parking.
I know, but I know what's
Oh,
gonna
I
happen.
understand. You want to ask Ron if it could be done.
Yeah, I mean,
But it wouldn't meet the code,
No.
even if it could fit.
I'm concerned that if people do end up parking, you won't be there all the time to govern this. So if a person parks here and a person opposite him parks also on the street, you've got one lane down the middle.
Yeah. And how do you get an emergency equipment through there?
Yeah.
You don't have on-site management, do you?
We do.
You will have well, then that may resolve that. If they have
Okay.
on-site management. Okay,
Well, could we make that a stipulation then that they have on-site management?
sure.
'Cause that was, I
He's-
mean, would
he
you
said he's
would
gonna
you
do it
consent with
anyway.
that? Or
I want to make sure that I understand what we're referring to as
that
on-site
basic,
management.
you mean, you're gonna have a staff there,
An
basically an office
Yes.
with a property manager on
Yes.
site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that goes a long way too. All right, anybody else? Do you have
Let me-
something in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, my thing is, I don't know where the rest of the council is, but I'm not, again, I'm going back to this gate thing. I don't think it's that significant.
My point about the gate was that we have a development here in the city now that has private streets, and they do not have a gate. And because of that, the public uses it, they pass through it, they park on it, the wear and tear is hard on the development. And my point there is that I am far more likely to be more along the lines of whatever you and your folks who've done these studies say, because it all falls on you. Once you put the gate up, nobody even asks the city whether it's their problem. They know it's your problem. Without the gate, then the public don't really know. You're talking about signage. I mean, I'm buying into what you're saying. I'm just saying that if you had the gate, I'd be likely to just say, do whatever you want to do over there. I mean, in terms of the length of these driveways or the number of garages or whatever. Without it, it becomes something that we need to more consider. Montahan says he doesn't care if you have a gate or not.
But I would want a review of the signage that they're going to put to notify, and so I guess my question for you is, and I know, Mayor, you just did this, but you went kind of fast for me.
Okay.
Of these 6 conditions that are here, which ones would you be agreeable with?
2,
Okay.
3, 4, and 6.
Okay. But would you also be agreeable with review of the signage?
Yes.
Okay. And would you be agreeable with the on-site property management?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, y'all see where he's going with this. Do you have any questions? We've done this 1,000 times. Ms. McCoy.
I'll be quick. I'm just saying, I think the gate, I'm like the mayor, I think the gate's more important than the signage. That's my personal opinion, and that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Would you like to add anything else?
I don't believe so, unless anyone has any further questions.
No, I think we're ready. All right, Mr. Montahan.
All right. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the variance request. And I guess there's 2 motions in here, but well, I'll just make a motion to approve the variance request from section 9.038 of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance and 9.034F of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance, subject to the conditions numbered 2, 3, 4, and 6 as provided by staff, and then with the additional conditions that staff must review the signage and make a determination of the appropriateness to convey the message that these are private roads and infrastructure, and that on-site management also be a condition of the development.
Okay. Does that feel workable?
Yep.
All right. Is there a second? I have a second from Mr. Carter. All right. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right. All in favor? All opposed?
It was 3-2.
Was it?
It passed 3-2.
All right. So it passed 3-2. I didn't see one of the hands. All right. There you go.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right. Let's go to B3. VA-09-23, this is a variance request from Stream Buffer Standards for 11 Gordon Street. This item also has a public hearing. Ron, go ahead.
Yes, this application is made by Kenneth Wood of PEC Plus. They're requesting a variance for an encroachment of 30,000 square feet into the 75-foot stream buffer and 8,000 square feet into the 50-foot stream buffer. And that's in order to pursue construction of a mixed-use or apartment structure. It's 318-unit complex. So the staff actually recommended approval with one condition, and that condition was that the variance shall only be applicable to the actual site plan that was submitted, and there's no changes to the site plan that are substantial in nature that would be required or permitted as a part of any approval. And so we arrived at that conclusion just based off of the topography of the site, where the site is located. There's a lot of streams and wetlands throughout, and only about 40% of the site, or 40% of the site is unusable. So there's lots of forked creeks, water lines, sewer lines, wetlands, floodplains, etc. And so the applicant is here tonight. They had a small presentation that they would like to provide the public and to the council in order to kind of drive home their points.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Ron before we hear from the applicant? All right. We'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
You all will come up and give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Haley Todd, 350 Research Corp., Peachtree Corners, Georgia.
Okay. And you?
Chad Lambeth, PC 350 Research Court, Peachtree Corners, Georgia 3000692. Can I have one of those speakers?
Will you both be speaking?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Then hand one of them a microphone.
Okay. Or I'll be speaking after her, so I can.
Okay.
Either way.
I can definitely give you my copy after.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
All right. Give me your name again.
Yes, I would love this. My name is Haley Todd.
Haley Todd. All right. Go ahead.
Not to be confused with just Todd, which I get emails for sometimes. So our site's highlighted in yellow here. It is on Highway 78, and we have Gordon Street kind of intersecting. We are here, Chad is the engineer on the project, I'm a planner. We're here with Brian. Brian is the developer. The property owners are also here tonight. We worked with Brian for a really long time with our firm. And on this one, because we've worked with Brian so often.
Who is Brian?
Brian is Brian is our developer. Because we worked with him for such a long time, we were able to kind of get his go-ahead to do a lot of due diligence on this project. We've done a lot of work on the front end. So we did the survey, we've done rock, utility, grading, environmental design, the whole gamut of design on this project. And so we are pretty confident we know what the constraints are. Ron kind of touched on those a little bit. And so we're pretty confident that the variances that we're requesting are the minimum relief necessary to be able to pursue this development. So we just wanted to kind of give you a rundown of the site. It is right nearby. It is right behind us. And so you can see the proximity to downtown. It's going to be super walkable. We have the new Mirror Lake connector coming through the very top corner of the site. And so this is just to get you situated. Ooh, that's a little interesting. Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. It's a little imperfect. Okay, so this is just giving you a rundown of our actions. We have our requested variance, which is encroaching approximately 34,000 square feet into the undisturbed city buffer. That would be the 50-foot buffer. And then the approximately 9,200 square feet into the impervious setback, so that's a 75-foot buffer. We have our criteria here that variances are evaluated on, the size, shape, and topography. We'll show you a little bit more specifically how it is oddly shaped because of the streams and wetlands and areas coming through. And then we have quite a few areas of special circumstances. So, thank you. I'll just let you drive. Cool. Chad Lambeth is going to tell you a little bit more about the specifics of the request.
Okay. Yeah. So to add to Haley's comments here, we've put together this exhibit. We're showing kind of our impacts, our locations of our impacts on the site. The purple areas are inside the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. The red areas, which there aren't many here, those are the impervious setback impacts that we're making. So we wanted to put this together to really emphasize kind of what we're up against and kind of show you guys where the impacts are and what triggers those. If you look, obviously, as it was mentioned, the stream kind of cuts down the middle of the site and then splits. Kind of unique in most cases for a development this size. The site, being 26 acres, doesn't typically have, 3 stormwater detention ponds. Obviously the topography, we're on the high point where our developable area is. So, that's a special circumstance that we don't typically see. The topography obviously falling off to multiple sides here, so it's really challenging to be able to capture, everything from the impervious areas in those stormwater areas. And then just noting, the purple areas are mostly located, our biggest impacts are located at where those stormwater management areas are. And so, if you look closely into the red areas, in reality, we have a few parking spaces that clip that 75-foot impervious. We have, a couple areas that we're being conservative on potential AC units or utilities that could go, up against that impervious setback. So I think the size, obviously, you can see is limited and, impacted by the 9 acres of stream buffers. The shape, obviously, the shape of the site in itself, plus the addition of what the streams push us into. We kind of get forced into those 3 pods. Topography I mentioned, and then the special circumstance. We just think that this is a unique project, and we really want to bring this to the city. I know our client has worked extremely hard, and I wanted to echo what Haley said on that. Is he has done a ton of due diligence for us to be able to get present this in front of you tonight. So I just want to reiterate how what lengths he's gone to get us here. So I'll give it back to her, but if you have any questions, obviously I can help answer as well.
Okay, good.
We just have a couple more slides just to show you the extent of the constraints here. The blue area is highlighting the stream buffer, the streams in the stream buffer area, and then we have the utility lines in green. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see across the top, the Mirror Lake connector takes another about 20,000 square feet, so about half an acre of the very top corner of the site. So you can see how we have kind of the 3 triangular areas where we actually can build, and even there we're contending with slopes that are technically unbuildable in what is left of the buildable area. And I think that's pretty much it. If you guys had specific questions, we'd be happy to answer those for you.
So when you are working on this in the future, that road is not called Mirror Lake Connector. That road is called Rica Parkway.
Good to know. We got that information from, I think, GDOT or the
It's been referred to that way for a long time.
Gotcha.
The road is going to be Mirror Lake, Villa Rica Parkway. So council, having looked at this, which we've had this in the packet for a while, does anybody have any questions for the applicant before I do a public hearing on this item? Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Montahan?
So I know this is a CMU zone property, so therefore the project requires a combination of commercial and residential. That's what mixed use kind of means. I see that and I know this is, again, you're here for a variance. So I see that you're here, you've got this kind of public space food area. What's the approximate area of that space?
That's a good question. I would say it's about, yeah, we can give you an exact measurement. I think it's about 20 to 30,000 square feet. Oh, Lord.
Just about half.
Assume an acre for now.
Yeah.
About an acre, okay.
Well, wouldn't that be 43,000?
43,560.
560. Yeah, I think that's an important component here. What I would point out too, to not only the public but to the council, is that what's before us here is a variance on the stream buffers. There is no, the zoning already exists for this type of development. That you're not here for zoning and you don't need permission to do this development. What you need is these stream buffer variances.
Correct.
So can you figure out what that exact piece is?
Sure.
Or something really close to it tonight that you can tell us?
Based
I think
on
we
the-
were thinking it was a little bit larger than even
Based
a
on the
full
size of
acre.
the connector, which I measured that out in CAD, so I do know that I'm confident that triangle area that the road will cut through is 20,000 square feet. And I was conservative on that, actually. I included the grading that on the backside of that apartment building there. And so based on the size of that corner, what I know it to be, I would say this is around 25,000 square feet. 25,000 square feet, including the visible amenities. Obviously, you could use the hillside. I'm not factoring that in just because it's pretty steep.
Okay. Mr. Brompton?
Mike, I guess what I was curious is that would you be willing to commit to an acre and a half of the commercial area there? Again, I know this you're here for a variance, but being that it has to be CMU, and and that you're kind of bound by the site plan that's submitted per this condition, or if you accept that condition, more or less, I was just curious.
Yeah, what I roughly measured was about a half acre. If you include this whole area.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're very constrained with the amount of topo here, but
We'll comply with the zoning, whatever the minimum zoning requirement is, and it should be presented on this site plan because the site plan is zoning specific.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, there's not one.
There is. I think that's the question, right?
That's the problem.
That's why he's asking you that.
I'm sorry.
So he's asking if you'll commit to an acre and a half because there is no minimum.
Understood.
In this zoning.
Understood.
But we would like to see as much as possible, and
Sure.
an acre and a half sounds like a good starting point.
Understood.
I don't know where we'd lean that to on the site plan as far as, the way this.
Well, if you think about it, if it were a commercial building would be maybe 10, 15, 20, 30,000 square feet. And so this would not only give you a broader variety of uses as opposed to one larger user, but it would also, it engages the community off of the main drag. We also are facing difficulties with visibility at that corner. So based on everything that we've looked at, and just because we feel really protective of that apartment pad, that's one of the flattest areas of the site, and that we're confident we're able to use that, but we make up for the open space in other locations for the actual development.
You're talking about the pad for, was it building 1 right there?
Building 1.
The building
one that's
closest to Avante.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and that's, I think your topos say 1130 to 1144, which is relatively flat. It's a 14-foot variation, and it looks
Correct.
like it's over a pretty good distance. So that's kind of why I thought that would be the idea. You already had your food truck parking, and it does look like you're putting some grading carve-outs there, but
Yes.
I assume you're going higher or lower on those?
I'll let the engineer take that one.
Where are you?
This right here, is this going higher or
That's
lower?
going lower. I think
Okay.
You're cutting down right there.
Okay, so the apartment building, we're kind of set down a little bit from this
It's
area.
falling to the creek.
It would have to
Okay.
because that's how that property lays.
Ah, that's
It
right,
falls
yes, because the
back
creek goes
from
back in there.
Olive Tree.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't, I don't think there is an acre and a half to give for the commercial there, though, with the way we are constrained on this side as well. You know, this area here is roughly about a half acre.
Okay.
And so, you know, we could try and, I mean, well, I don't want to commit a line, but, I just don't believe there's the room to do a full acre and a half there.
Okay. Let me ask Ron a question, if I can, since this is CMU, and I know we're talking about zoning here, we're not talking about variances, but do they have, what are the buffer requirements for this commercial up against a residential if it's all CMU? Are there any buffer requirements there? Like how much usable space, if they only did half an acre, would they have?
Hold on one moment. I have the ordinance open here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just type in.
Do we have internal buffer requirements in CMU?
I mean, that's what I was asking, essentially.
I don't know that we do.
I don't think we do.
Can't,
I don't-
yeah, if
I don't
we
think
do,
so
they can't
either.
be very much because
Let's see.
it's all in this downtown area,
Chapter 7.
laying right up against residential.
Just bear with me here.
So if the developable site is 15 acres, then an acre and a half would be 10%.
Right.
But the CMU section doesn't define that percentage
Right.
as a minimum.
And you're asking CMU from commercial or residential?
Well, I mean, if you have if you did a small, within the CMU, is there a buffer, like with this?
No.
No, that's
it's
what I'm
from
asking,
other
right?
zoning categories.
Only between the zoning categories, right?
Correct,
So
yeah.
there isn't like a general buffer for residential to commercial, it's just, it's category to category. Okay. So if you were able to do the half acre, then you could, whatever future development came in that was commercial, could you utilize the extent of it then?
Right.
Do you agree, do you all agree with that statement?
I'm not exactly
All right.
sure. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure what you mean.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, if I said I would like you to use half an acre of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's but I say it's going to be a C1 and it's not CMU, then you would have to eat some of that half an acre would be eaten by buffer.
Correct.
Whereas here you don't have that issue. You
Yes.
basically have it. So
I think the idea is to also like we really want to focus on engaging because this is such a big opportunity for downtown, and we certainly don't want to cut anybody cut anybody off because the visibility is already so limited. So we want people coming in, but also we want the residents to be able to, use that space as well. So
yeah, I mean because it is part of downtown, that's why we want to see a commercial component to it, because that drives more people downtown. So if you are able to put an ice cream store or something like that there, an ice cream shop, then that helps drive people downtown, and it goes kind of to the
Sure.
vibrancy and
And
revitalization of downtown.
I think
It's large enough for a small retail
Yeah.
site. It's behind a retail building, the Olive Garden.
Right.
Could you all get a little closer to the mic?
I'm
He's
sorry.
having a hard
It's
time.
behind, the storage area for the city vehicles. It's not really, it's on a road that's going down. It's not like a real viable commercial, like vibrant piece where you're going to get a large user.
Right.
So we've designed the site plan multiple times and submitted it for a site plan approval. So
Yeah.
I can't really commit to just a random number of acres to put there because this is engineered drawings with grade plans that make this work to be able to do this development, because the property owners, they've owned this since the 60s, before stream buffer variances existed, before the city ran the sewer lines, storm lines. So this is a hardship. And so we're trying to develop around these constraints to still fit in the zoning category that the property has. So, it's hard for me to commit for more than what has already been submitted.
Can you not move it down the property line to share the parking lot? Does the topo just not let you get from one to the other and make it longer? sort of northwest to southeast.
Oh, are you referring to like increasing the size of the park area?
Yeah, I'm just looking at that great big old parking lot down there, and the end of it's going to be the least popular part, right? This is the closest to the railroad.
Right, but that's so. To your point, it's towards the railroad because it's, it's the
undesirable area.
Yeah,
Right.
we couldn't put a building there, but
No, I'm talking about the commercial piece that we're talking about, extending the size of it down the property line, going southeast toward the creek, toward the parking lot.
Just because the way that the grade is there, and grading there will be increasingly difficult as you get towards the closer to the railroad track. On that corner, we're in a unique situation where we're able to sort of pad that part out. I was going to say that, in the future, as the downtown area changes, if the location where the city vehicles are parked is redeveloped, for instance, if that block is extended, there's going to be more opportunity there. And one of the reasons why we've proposed the sort of like food truck civic area is because we know that it's flexible. We've done that concept in a couple of other places and it's been really successful. We found that it drives awareness of a location being, somewhere being a location and kind of makes it a destination. And the nice thing is, in the future, if the sites around it are redeveloped in order to give more visibility to that particular parcel or the particular corner, then that site could also be transformed into like a commercial pad for like a brick and mortar.
But that's kind of the purpose of my question, though, is that, even on your site plan here, you do show the Avanti building as future redevelopment. So what I'm concerned about is if we don't reserve some space now, and hopefully something a little bit larger than the little corner that you show there, then, now you're going to have an apartment building or something there, and it's going to make it much more difficult later on down the line to kind of meet the changing conditions of the downtown area if now we put a structure in there. And that's kind of why I'm asking if we could reserve some, a little bit more, maybe if you say it's a quarter of an acre, then if we can reserve up to half an acre.
So I think it is about half an acre at this point.
Yeah.
It's about 25,000 square feet.
And we can reserve it towards the southeast. It's just a matter of, is it feasible to build? Because we have I think that slope is 35 to 40 feet coming off of that property line. So really, and you can see the wall kind of hugging the parking there on the southeast. So you really start to, that wall increases in height, and you're really starting to push it's more of a financial burden to start to push that slope down.
Yeah.
We could reserve it. It's just a matter of somebody who really wanted to come in and pad out a larger area is going to generate some bigger walls than what we're showing there.
What if you did a second pad elevation? And what if you entered it off the road behind Olive Tree?
That would be, are you referring to where the two bays of parking are?
I can't see 2 bays of parking from here, sorry.
Is it this area here you're saying to pad?
Yeah, coming off of the Olive Tree Road.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. We've got, this area right here, that's 35 to 40 foot of grade change. And so really, if you start to push that slope out, you're generating a large wall. So it really, the area is constrained and we think it's programmed for an appropriate, type of commercial, for what we can offer. But it's just been a real challenge with the topography and the physical constraints of the site.
Okay. Well, we were certainly hoping for more, but I understand you can't change the land very much to accommodate it and still be able to do your project. So you're thinking you can get a half acre reserved in there for the commercial piece?
Yeah, based on my measurement of the northern corner where the road will come through, I would estimate that that's about.
Yeah, if she's at
25,000
25,000, she's over half an acre already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like I said, that, that's going to be like the size of a Pelican's, for example, is not 20,000 square feet. That sort of use is going to be much smaller. And really the only reason we're not proposing brick and mortar there at this time is, again, just the visibility is so not ideal.
Yeah, I think we understand that part.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously what is happening here is that you're in the CMU. zoning, so we're looking for the C
Yeah.
to make it work. And if there's not enough C, we start to wonder about whether we are in the CMU. But I agree from my experience that 25,000 square feet does lend itself to a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot building with parking, and that is a reasonable C in my view. I just think that we would like to see more, but I'm getting the picture here that it would be incredibly difficult, not just costly, but difficult to make the site work and get much more out of this.
It'll be green around it, with the hillside, but just what you can see that's shaded there from the rest of the room, that is very steep hill.
Let me see if
so.
anybody else has any questions. Miss McCoy.
This might be more of a comment, but I do like the green space that y'all are proposing and stuff. But my question is with the commercial, when I think of CMU, I think of like you have the living space on top and you have storefronts on the bottom. Is that that might not be my right question. My next question would be, where have y'all designed the buildings yet, or have you just done the footprint?
No, these are footprints of actual buildings. You can't, if you can't put retail, we've got 2 creek crossings, no road frontage, so it's hard to go and put retail in the bottom of all these apartment units. You could do it, but no one's gonna lease it.
Okay.
But so the idea, the multiple site plans were just, we've gone through, and what this commercial to me is envisioned as an area for, you have the amphitheater, whenever there's events downtown, this is an area where farmers market can set up, or you can have an area for food trucks when there's somebody at the amphitheater. It's a kind of civic commercial area, because right now downtown needs more people. You don't need, right now it has a retail that needs to be filled. So, this piece is zoned to be able to try and get some people that's walkable. But unfortunately, with the limited amount of space we have, it's hard to build a viable commercial use there that, one, you can't see, and 2, you have to cross a bunch of creeks to get to it to where your major piece is. So kind of the site plan that's what I envision that piece for being, is some type of, you may get a small, drive-through like she was mentioning, the ice cream place or something, but to me, I think it's an area that will be set up for event space for when things are happening downtown right now.
Okay, well, my next question would be, how many units are you looking at?
It's 318. Yeah, it's 318 on the site plan.
Okay, and the bedrooms, how many are 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom, whatever?
It's a mix of 2 and 1 bedrooms. I don't believe there's any 3 bedrooms in it.
Okay, so you said, I'm just doing the math in my head. So we're looking at 600-700 people, if you were completely full, would be living there. So that would be 600 or 700 people that are walking by that commercial every day. Is my point, is that I would think if there's commercial in there, there's enough people in the project that they would see it.
I think by the numbers, you're definitely spot on. But I think a bigger problem that we're looking at now, and speaking to retail below on the first level, nationwide, we're just not seeing that be rented out. We're seeing empty storefronts, and I think where we're at is we would rather have, a vibrant space, a cool space that people want to go to, that people are aware of, that people know that there are events happening at, than empty storefronts that don't really inspire much confidence in, either the development or the area or what have you. And I think we've seen it work in Alpharetta as an example where the food trucks have been a big success in pulling people to the area. And like I said, we have that flexibility. So, in the future, if we're looking long term, we think it could be a viable option for that corner.
Okay.
All right. I need to do a public hearing. Is there any, council, do you have any questions? Anybody else for the applicant before I do the public hearing? All right. If you guys will just step to the side, let me see if there's anybody here who would like to speak for or against these variances, or just comment. Come on up here, ma'am. If you will just give us your name and address for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alita Farmer. My father is Lester Dobbs. He resides at 216 Anderson Road, Villa Rica, Georgia. We had received notification of this public hearing, and we're just trying to figure out how does this impact our property, because we are, I guess, the property backs up on the backside of the Villa Rica, city of Villa Rica, and I haven't really got any clarity as to how that would impact our property. So since you all are here, maybe you could.
Do you have a
explain that
site
little bit.
plan here?
Yes.
Can you show her parcel?
We're right here right now.
Okay. We're 216 Anderson Road, so we're on, it's not Clayhorn Street, so if you go down that, where Dordan Street is?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yes. So I'm trying to see how we back up on your.
That's 216.
So what is your address?
216 Anderson Road.
Anderson Road?
Yes.
Right down.
Well, I know where it is. I'm saying I don't see where that is.
The back of them.
Yeah, we're on the back end.
I can only hear one person at a time.
Yeah, you're up here.
So, okay, so I know we received notification, so what we're trying to figure out in regards to what you're doing, how's it impacting our property?
So we're here tonight to discuss a stream buffer variance.
Okay.
Where we are asking, I will show you.
Okay.
The areas in the purple.
Okay.
Right here. So you're not allowed to build in the purple.
Yes.
What we're asking to do is put stormwater ponds right here so that we can collect the water during rain events, basically. And then allow for extra parking, like here and here.
Okay.
You see the red?
Yes. So how are we kind of tied though? I'm trying to.
So you're up here, and this development that you see on this site plan is permitted by right.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know because I know that we do have a stream that kind of borders the property.
Yep, it comes up here.
And that was why I was trying to see how close in.
Yeah.
So are you saying that there will be apartments on the back? Like if we went to the end of our property, we'd be walking into the back of somebody's apartments?
I think there's a lot of space, linear footage between the property line and your
I
father's
believe you're over
property.
around 1,000
Yeah.
feet from us.
Okay, so it's 1,000 feet, so it would still be some barrier?
Yeah.
You would have all this natural buffer and obviously the proposed.
Oh, okay, so it is a natural buffer between our property?
And on even this is half an acre of space, this triangle
Okay.
right here. So this, and to the extent that we can, they're putting the road in right here, to the extent that we can.
All right,
we're gonna leave that.
I'm gonna call time on that,
thank
but
thank you.
all right, very good, because actually that's what my question was. You're far away from this property. All right, sir, you come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Ken Davis.
Ken
And I
Davis.
think I own property that joins your property, and the creek runs through my property. So what's gonna happen to the creek? How is it gonna be impacted? I have a waterfall on the creek.
Do you know which one is your property?
It's 105 West Gordon Street.
Okay, you're over here, West Gordon Street?
He's right behind us.
You're right behind us, you're over here.
So, just to speak on the stream, so typically, I know the main concern when people have new development around them is that streams will be eroded or water's gonna cause issues. erosion, all that.
Also, what about sewer?
Sewer is also on our site already, so we were tying into existing
It's
sewer.
not the line that runs through my property. It's woefully inadequate for anything more.
Which one are you
in-
in? I'm sorry.
I think he's over here.
My property starts where South Carroll Road dead end. The north end of South
right
Carroll
here.
Road.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yes, Gordon Street.
It's right here.
You're right here.
So we will be
Probably
tying
not
into,
let them do
so
it
there's already
because
existing sewer infrastructure on our property, so we would be
Okay.
we would be connecting on our property to that infrastructure. So there would be no impact to your sewer, off-site from what we're doing. We don't have to do a sewer line extension
And
or anything.
how much will the creek be impacted?
So that's the major scare on new development is that your developers come in, they erode your property, you erode your creeks and increase flows. But the reality is we are required by code to reduce the flow of that water. So the velocity of water, obviously the sediment stuff, all those concerns are during construction, but those.
See, I want a waterfall just connects to your property.
So basically, everything on this site is coming in this way, and we're going to have, this is a stormwater pond and this is a pond, and we're going to catch the water coming down. So it will remain on the site.
So the creek will not be stopped
No.
or impacted,
No.
okay?
We're not allowed to touch within
No, we're
50,
we're leaving it
25
be.
feet on
Sure.
the ground.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at is we are required by
So
code.
maybe you can just buy my property.
All right, Mr. Davis.
And you
All
have
right.
a driveway, a road, it's 90% buildable.
Well, you can talk to them about that after the meeting, okay? If you want to sell your property, do that after. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, is there anybody else here who would like to speak?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's very unusual for me to do it that way, but this is an unusual night. And I'm glad we was able to get your questions answered and her questions answered too, wherever she went. All right. Is there anybody else here? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We'll come back to staff. Ron, if you'll come up. Council, do you have any questions for Ron? Again, we got into a discussion about the commercial piece of this, but the requirement has, the code does not require a minimum for commercial. So that cannot be a consideration. We are really only looking at the stream buffers is all we're doing here tonight. They have the zoning that is required for exactly what they want to do here. And there is no minimum on the commercial. We would just like you to do the most you can. If you could have committed to something, it would have made everybody feel a lot better. But I appreciate your honesty that it just doesn't work to do that commitment. So, Council, do you have any questions for staff or for the applicant before we look at a motion?
My
Mr.
question,
Moptan.
I'm sorry, would be, so there's a one condition here that's been recommended. Do you agree or consent to that condition? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, let's read that out. Ron?
Sure. The variance shall only be applicable to the site plan submitted. Changes to the site plan that are not substantially similar in nature to the plan submitted before council, including but not limited to height, unit counts, and site layout, shall be strictly prohibited. The variance shall be automatically rescinded should the site plan or substantially similar site plan fail to receive an LDP within 18 months of approval.
Oh, wow. That's the first time I've heard that one. Okay. Would anybody like to be recognized for a motion? Mr. Carter.
I'm going to move to approve the variance request by Kenneth Wood for property located at 11 Gordon Street to encroach into the city's 75-foot stream buffer by 30,000 square feet and the 50-foot stream buffer by 8,000 square feet, subject to the conditions specified by staff.
All right, excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
That's not the right number. 9,200 is the second number.
Well, hold on now. Hold on.
That's not what the, that's not what the cover sheet says, at least.
All eyes are on you, Ron. Read fast.
They are correct. I'm actually looking at their letter of intent right now, dated October 18th, where it does indicate 34,000, and that's for the city buffer, and then 9,200 square feet for the impervious buffer.
All right, is that consistent with what you have presented to us tonight with the plan?
It is actually.
All
Yeah,
right,
it's in their
Ron,
plan.
please give Mr. Carter the right numbers.
I've got them 34,000, 9,200.
That's
Okay,
right.
I will modify my motion to have it subject to the 34,000 square feet for the 75-foot stream buffer and 9,200 square feet for the 50-foot stream buffer.
Ma'am, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
That's right.
Mr. Montan, you still second that?
Yeah, and that's still subject to the condition that by staff, right?
Yes, he only
Yeah.
modified the.
Yes, I second that.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Madam Clerk, did you make heads or tails out of how that worked? All right, very good. So if we needed to clarify it. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to B4. This is a text amendment, TA-02-23, to establish wholesale businesses in the C2 zoning district. This item also has a public hearing. Your agenda says C1.
It sure does.
But that is incorrect.
Yes.
This is for the C2 zoning district. Ron, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so all indications there on that cover sheet should be C2. And so the purpose here is Arpit Realty LLC is seeking a text amendment to establish the wholesale businesses as a permitted use within that C2 zone. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 3-2, and it was presented as C2. It was duly noticed as C2 in the newspaper and to surrounding property owners. The staff recommended approval for this with conditions, and it should be the condition of 10,000 square feet. It looks like my cover sheet didn't switch over between it because there's a condition that's on there. But the condition is for 10,000 square feet maximum within the C2 zone. And the applicant is here actually tonight to speak to his application. But that would be for all C2 zone properties with that maximum for 10,000 square feet.
But you recommend approval, and you have a condition here?
Yeah, so the condition was actually on the work session. As we remember, we went over that condition. So it looks like something didn't carry over to the regular meeting. But it should say C2 approval with conditions. I'm not sure how that could have happened.
Okay, this is a text amendment, though, which would modify the permitted in this zoning district, right?
That's correct. It would,
the C2 zoning, so we don't necessarily have to have an applicant for this one, right? Or does each one have to come?
We don't have to. We had an applicant in this case. The applicant did do the text amendment. So usually
but I'm
the
making a
staff
text
would be the
amendment
one.
change here that applies across the board.
Across the board,
right?
yes.
It's not
For C2.
applicant specific. Let me do this. Let me see if council has any questions on this first, from staff. Okay. If not, let me do a public hearing. Unless, Mr. Connolly, are you just dying to get up here and talk?
I'm not dying to get up there and talk.
But you want to say something?
I do want to just address the condition.
Well, come on up. So I need you to be on the mic.
Okay.
All right. So this is the applicant.
I'm Chuck Connerly, 402 Noonan Street in Carrollton, Georgia. Mr. Mayor, Council, good to see you guys this evening. This property, at least the property that we own, is a 2.14 acre tract that's located just off of Mirror Lake Boulevard. If you're going north from the interstate and you take a left on Connors Road by the shopping center, then take your immediate left on the old Liberty Road, it actually dead ends in a cul-de-sac down there, and this property is located right there at the cul-de-sac. And it's currently zoned C2, medium density commercial, and our proposed use would be to develop the property as a wholesale business which would supply goods and materials to convenience stores that would then sell those at retail. So picture what you buy at a convenience store at retail, and this wholesale business would be a supplier to those convenience stores at wholesale. The business wholesale is actually a defined use in the zoning ordinance. It defines it as a business establishment that generally sells commodities in large quantities or by the piece to retailers, jobbers, other wholesale establishments or manufacturing establishments. The commodities are basically for future resale for use in the fabrication of a product or for use by a business service. So that's what we're talking about here. The only issue is that while the ordinance defines business wholesale, it doesn't provide for it as a permitted use in any zoning category. And so that's what we're asking for, is it to be included as a permitted use in the C2 category, which frankly is where it belongs, because that is the medium density commercial use category, as opposed to C1, which is the low density commercial use category. The only issue we really have with the recommendation is 10,000 square feet is a little bit small. And to put that in comparison, in C1, which is the low density commercial, you can have up to 35,000 square feet of retail space. And obviously retail space is going to involve more traffic, more parking, and all that kind of stuff. In C2, you can even exceed 35,000 square feet in retail space. So our request would be to have, as it relates to wholesale, something that's more in line with the retail space. I would suggest 35,000 square feet, which is what you would be allowed for retail in C1. We could live with something smaller than that. But we'd like for it to at least be 20,000 square feet. And I think that's reasonable given the types of uses that you see in C2, which are typically kind of your big box stores and that kind of stuff. So that's really our only concern, was the 10,000 square feet was a little small. And I don't know, Ron would know the answer, whether that was proposed when there was discussion about it being added to C1, which is the lower density. But since we're actually talking about C2, the medium density commercial, I think it would support a little bigger store than that.
Right. Okay, I do understand. Counsel, do you have any questions for the applicant, though? All right, Ron, come back up. So earlier today, when we were talking about this, we continued to talk about it as the C1, and we were talking about the low, a lower impact. And so when you talked about the 10,000 being the maximum, that made sense. Mm-hmm. Now that we're talking about C2, help me understand why you would still be recommending the maximum 10,000 square feet.
Because I think it was because of my impression of the of this type of a use being that it wasn't something that is really meant for the public to go in and shop in, and being that if it was just stacking of merchandise, and I think at the time I mentioned like Sam's Club or something to that nature versus something like this type of an establishment, we figured having a cap. And there needs to be some form of a cap, otherwise you're going to get a wholesale operation that could be far larger, like a Sam's Club or...
I don't disagree with that, but 10,000 he said 35 or some other number. I mean, you're not talking about 35 is too small for either of the uses you just talked about.
I don't know that as a fact. I don't know how big these
Sam's?
I haven't done the research on how big their stores are.
Yeah,
so I can't testify to that effect. But what I can say is
I'll testify they're a lot bigger than 50,000 square feet.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my new planner's license by testifying something wrong like that.
That's fine. I'll worry with mine.
But what I will say is, Tom and I, we did talk in the office a little bit about, having these caps and kind of protecting the town from adverse reaction from something that we never thought of happening when it comes to like wholesale uses. So that was kind of the intent behind the number. I don't want to say that the number is like arbitrary or something to that nature, but we at least the wholesale the operations that Mr. Connolly was speaking to, I had the impression that they were these smaller stores of about 10,000. And 10,000 square feet isn't exactly entirely very, very small, but we thought that would have been enough. But I do yield to the knowledge that the applicant does have with these operations and having them a little bit larger. So, and I yield to your knowledge of knowing Sam's Club and how much...
Well, but my point is, so can you live with, because I understand your role here and what you're trying to do is look out for the unexpected that might slip through if we make a text amendment change. But what if we did 25,000 or 35,000. Tom?
So what is the unit of measure of this number? Is it the building or the site?
Well,
The
I was
building.
thinking we were talking about the building.
Yeah.
And what's the minimum site size?
The minimum size in the C2 zone is a, let me see, I just want to double check before I say something wrong.
You got
I
that?
don't want to do that. Okay, it's
Pull that table up that's got the dimensions on it.
2.5 acres
2.5 acres is the minimum site
So
size.
that's 100,000, 105,000.
for C2, minimum
square
lot
feet.
size, yeah.
Square feet
So 40,000 square foot building?
is half. Well, it's less than half. Well, would 25, sounds like to me 25,000 would be workable for you. I mean, for you, Ron, I'm asking you first, then I'll ask the applicant.
I think so. And I'm thinking of, and I really don't, I have only a few examples of these types of wholesale stores that I've, that I've seen in the wild, as I say, or in public.
In the wild.
But I do know, I am aware of, there is one in Douglasville, for example, that's very popular for our general West Georgia vicinity, and it's in an old shopping center. It used to be part of the old Walmart, if we recall where that is, Stewart Parkway. And obviously, I've never been inside of one of these because I don't have the license to do so. I don't own a convenience store. But being that they can take up the space of an old Walmart, that wasn't a super center, but a general Walmart store, an older style store, I can only imagine that would probably be more than 10,000, probably more, probably about the same as 25,000, maybe even more, a little bit more than 25,000. So I think maybe, just based off of that example, I would think that the 30,000 square feet would be, or even more, 35,000, even what the applicant testified to would probably be reasonable in that effect.
Have you ever been in the Publix over here at Mirror Lake?
I have, yes.
That's 32,000 square feet.
It's small for a Publix.
So Chuck, did you
but
say
big for-
25?
35.
Retail as a matter of right in C1 at
Go ahead.
The ordinance allows you to do retail up to 35,000 square feet in C1, and you can exceed that in C2. And that's why I threw out the 35,000 number, because you would think if it's okay for retail, it would be okay for wholesale use like
You have a
you're
minimum of
describing.
2.5 acres over there?
We don't. I think it's 2.14, but I'm assuming that it's a lawful non-conforming lot. I mean,
I don't know if
I'm
I'd
seeing
assume a
Tom.
whole bunch, but
I'm seeing Tom shake his head, so that may be an issue we need to bring back to the city.
well, you could do that because this is a text amendment change anyway, so this would apply not just to you.
Mayor, just a bit of information. So according to the Douglas County tax records, it looks like the Sam's Club, if we're trying to, is 129,646 square feet.
I'm told that the average size is 135,000 square feet for a Sam's Club. I won't
Put that on your
vouch for
certificate,
that,
Ron.
but
So you know.
I'm told that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
given that this is a text amendment, I haven't seen anywhere where the text amendment is written out. In order to amend the text to the zoning ordinance, we need to have what the text amendment is.
It is. It's part of our application. I've got section 4.14
You got it.
4.14 red line, and it just adds a double E in business wholesale as a permitted use.
And that's what we need. I mean, it's not on the cover sheet, so I don't know that any of y'all have even
If you
seen
keep
it.
scrolling, I think we'll get to it. All right.
Do we need to table it?
Let's see what he's got.
It's just in the application.
Yeah, keep going.
It's too
All right, this is where we copied the section and then added it. You'll see at the very end, under the permitted uses, there it is, double E. That's the only proposed change.
What
there.
kind of time constraint are you on? I'm a little concerned now because You're trying to pull this up in an application for a text amendment change. Those two things don't jive for what I'm trying to do here. If I'm gonna make a text amendment, I need to be looking at the ordinance.
Yeah.
And I understand, but that's in your application. It hasn't been prepared that way to me. Just tell me first what your time constraint is. Do you need to try to get this resolved tonight? Or if I tabled it to January, would that be what would that do to? You understand what I'm saying, David?
I do, and
That's
I
his
want to make this point, that what he's shown us right here answers my question that I had as to how it's going to change the text. That answers that.
And
it should have been put in your cover sheet, but.
And keep in mind that that term, business, wholesale, is already defined in the ordinance. So it's a term that's defined in the ordinance. The only thing we're proposing is to add it to the list of permitted uses in the C2 district.
And not have a cap, or either have a cap of 35,000.
Well, yeah, see, if you look above where we proposed the change, those are permitted uses. So you can have retail small scale, less than 15,000 square feet, retail medium scale, between 15 and 35,000. And just for reference, that's where it ends in C1.
I'm following you, but the use is not retail. The use is wholesale.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so in that instance, you wouldn't expect the same kind of traffic. You wouldn't expect the parking demands and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Did you get an answer to your question?
Which one, Tom? Yeah, well, could I get an answer to that about the tabling?
Well, I mean, it would be our preference to do it tonight,
Okay.
if we can.
Well, help me out, David, because I'm struggling here.
Well, the question that I had raised has been answered, so I don't have any concern about that. If y'all are still debating about some limitation you're going to put on the size of the building, I don't know if y'all could come to a resolution of that or not amongst yourselves.
Well, I don't think so, but I've asked Ron if he had any heartburn about that number being 35,000.
No, I don't have heartburn over it. I think this is kind of more so a learning exercise for us, being that we haven't had a cap on wholesale before, and we don't really have any community examples of that. So,
Okay, so you're asking that this be a permitted use in the C2 zoning category with a cap of 35,000 square feet. That's
Yes.
what you are asking for, Ron.
yes.
All right.
That's
I
your
understand the
recommendation.
applicant's asked for it, but this is a text amendment change, and so I'm needing you to tell me that you are comfortable.
I'm comfortable with that.
All right,
yes.
Mr. Carter.
Okay, you brought up that the minimum site size was 2.5 acres. And this is only 2.14 acres. This doesn't qualify for what you brought up.
It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot, though, his particular situation. So the lot is already in existence, and it's already zoned C2.
So you're saying it does qualify?
Yes.
Okay.
It legally doesn't qualify.
Which way are we going to go with
It
this?
doesn't qualify, but it's legally C2.
Fancy way of
Because
saying
we did.
grandfathered in.
Pre-existing,
Yep.
yeah.
Don't start with that. Okay, Mr. Carter, are you
Yeah.
confident that you can make a motion on this?
I can do it.
All right, let's do that.
First, I have a qualification for Ron. You said it was you said there was a condition.
I didn't do a public hearing.
I
Does this
thought
one
you did.
require a public hearing?
Yes, it would.
Yes, it does.
Let me ask Ron first. You said
All right.
there was a condition, but you didn't show a condition on here.
Yeah.
You said reasons, but you showed no condition.
Yeah, we did go, there was a cover sheet that was prepared, and it had it for the 1 o'clock work session, and apparently it didn't, the software hasn't changed it over to the 6 o'clock meeting. But there is one condition. It was for wholesale shall be limited to 10,000 square feet, and now it looks like after our discussion, that we would like that number to be 35,000 square feet. That's a number that I'm comfortable with, so.
All right, let me do the public hearing then. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this text amendment? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Carter, I'll recognize you for a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the requested text amendment from ARP Realty LLC, as presented with subject to the condition as specified by staff for 35,000 square foot minimum.
Maximum.
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 Maximum. All right. I have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Momtahan. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, thank you. All right, let's do B5, CU04-23, 419 Main Street. This is a special exception use to operate a shipping container, food hall / shared kitchen. This also has a public hearing. Is the applicant here on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to try to redeem myself here. Michael Rickman is seeking a special exception use permit, and this is to operate the food hall and shared kitchen operation, but also that operation will be constructed using shipping containers. And as we know, at the last city council meeting, the city council permitted for shipping containers to be considered within the CBD, CMU, C2, and I2 zones. And the council did approve that. And as a part of that, the staff is recommending approval as well for the special exception permit, being that it is a requirement to come before the council for a special exception for these anytime that these shipping containers are used. And so this would be our first one here in the city if this is approved.
Okay, are there any questions for Ron? All right, let's do a public hearing. Well, let's hear from the applicant. Where's the applicant?
The owner's here as well. But, I mean, to kind of give you an idea of what's happening, we're basically using 419 Main Street to construct shipping containers that are going to operate as a sort of a shared food hall where there's a shared kitchen, a part of it, and you got individual tenants in these shipping containers. Pardon me, I'm dealing with a cold, so sorry. But these would be smaller operations that allow for almost like business incubation centers. So somebody trying to start a restaurant has a shared kitchen, and they are able to operate out of there as like a food hall, sort of. So we've got designs for it. I think there's drawings that we could go through. There's renderings too, but those kind of speak to what that is. But the owner's here as well, so if there's questions or anything you guys have, or if you want to say anything, Brandon, totally up to you.
Brandon Thompson, 104 Reserve Drive, Carrollton, 30117. Yeah, my envisionment for this is basically to have a mini Krog Street / Pond City Market here. Food hall doesn't sound as luxurious as what we're really trying to accomplish. It's more of a inner kind of urban meets Villa Rica. Give everybody the fusion foods, fusion tacos, noodle bowls. I've already got a bunch of renters already wanting to jump in on this if this gets approved. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's we're gonna get if this is approved, we're gonna get the ball running. We've already working with the SPDC. We've got private financing working on right now, and we'd like to start constructing immediately. We've already torn down the building, so we're just sitting on a parking lot that's doing the city no good. So we'd like to. That's pretty much all I got to say. We'd just like to give us a taste of Georgia right here in Villa Rica and have some crowd come in and be our own little version of a Woodstock with our own Pond City Market, I guess. That's kind of the thoughts.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant before we do a public hearing? All right, let me do a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this special exception use to operate a shipping container, food hall / shared kitchen? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll revert back to council. As we've already talked about, this came before the council last month for this type of use. What you have here is just the first applicant for this use. We have another one coming, I think, in January or certainly sometime soon. So, council, do you have any questions for the applicant or for staff? All right, Mr. Momtahan.
Ron, I guess it goes without saying, even though this is going to be food prepared and served in a shipping container, that they still have to comply with all the health and
yes,
all those kind of
all
requirements.
health. Yep, that's right. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right,
Health and
anybody
fire.
else?
Where does this little village area go? Where's this planned for? Do we have a spot for it? Or is it just a concept?
No,
It's Robbie's Tire.
Down here at the end next to, where James is?
I believe it's Cheeve Street.
No, you know where Hickstown is?
Hickstown,
It's
yeah.
at
Yeah.
the end of Hickstown,
Okay.
the opposite end.
Here's a picture.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Who would like to be recognized for a motion?
Okay.
Oh, I guess I do one question.
All
So,
right.
ask the applicant, do they have any objection to these conditions?
Have you all seen these conditions?
I think they were discussed, but we're just now seeing them now. As architecturally, we are absolutely providing all of those, so there's no issue at all with any of those conditions.
I think we're fine.
All right, Mr. Carter.
Pretty straightforward. Okay, now I move to approve the requested special exemption use permit by Michael Rickman as presented, subject to the conditions specified by staff.
All right,
Second.
have a motion from Mr. Carter, a second from Mr. Momtahan. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, come on up and let's do the financial update real quick.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
It's 12, the council, 12, yeah. It's okay.
Chilly too.
That one right there.
You got
Yep.
me chilly
Okay, good evening. This is the financial update as of October 2023. We will jump right into cash. This is a comparison of October, at the end of October of 2023 in comparison to end of October 2022. Total cash is up by 53%, 48 million compared to 31.3 million. The main increase is due to the bond proceeds for the East Side TAD. We closed on those at the end of September, and we have about 14.4 million there. The water and sewer fund, don't let that concern you too much, even though it's down 60% from 10 million to 4 million. That is also pending some GFA reimbursements, around $3.2 million. You can see our 2015 Carroll Splost is slowly dwindling down because of the 2021 Carroll Splost that is up and going now. The same for the Douglas Splost. We are now getting the new Splost from that as well. Residential permits and taps, year-to-date through October, 40 building permits and 11 water and sewer taps, compared to 3 building permits last year and 25 water and sewer taps. As you know, in October, Pine Mountain Gold Museum hosts the Ghost Train and Haunted House. The train tickets, just over 3,000 and generated around $39,455 in revenue. The Haunted House, I believe, was new this year, had 941 tickets and generated $9,320 in revenue. As I stated, at the end of September, we actually closed on the East Side TAD, or you probably hear the Urban Redevelopment Agency bonds. We borrowed $20,985,000, with around $19 million being in project construction, $1.6 million in capitalized interest, meaning that is what's going to be funding the debt service for the next couple of years, and then of course the cost of issuance of $331,000. Water and sewer is one of our enterprise funds, and again, we have to run it like a business. Through October, we've had $765,000 in revenue and expenses of $881,000. So right now, we have a loss of around $116,000. The second enterprise fund business activity is your sanitation and solid waste. Through the month of October, we've had total revenue of $138,000 and our expenses at $124,000. So we have a net income in that fund of $13,000. Last but not least is our self-funded insurance. In the bank, at the end of October, we had $1.7 million, almost $1.8 million in the bank. Our contributions, which come from both the employer and the employee, totaled $190,000, and the claims that we paid and the admin fees that were paid was $153,000. So we had savings of $36,000 for the month of October. That is it.
All right. Any questions for Jennifer? All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right. Tonight we have an executive session. I know we got the city manager's report. But before you do your report, I'm going to make some remarks. I know everybody stayed here to hear this. The city manager's report. Barring some a special called meeting or anything for the rest of the month, this will be the last council meeting that I will preside over here. So I want to take a few minutes of liberty here to address the public and to address the members of this council. Tonight, I want to address the members of the council who have sat here with me for the past 7 years, both as mayor and council member. The story of Villa Rica is the story of change. We began as a stop on the postal routes of the 1830s, then we became a depot along the railroad, and today we occupy 2 exits on the interstate. At each of these phases in its history, the city has grown. Nothing can stop that growth. No person can stop that growth. Tonight, I have a history lesson about that. In the 1980s, before most of the council members present were here or active in politics, Villa Rica annexed a large portion of land into the city. It was a controversial move that boosted the city's population overnight by over 60%, from 4,000 to 6,500. Some of these new residents didn't like being part of the big city, and they pushed back. But not before Teddy Lee beat the incumbent mayor, Ray Barber, to be elected to the office of mayor in 1991. He was from the part of the city that had recently been annexed. In 1993, the anti-growth forces got local legislation passed that de-annexed 40% of the city. That included the residence of Mayor Lee. 3 days later, the council of that time voted that Lee vacate his office because he no longer lived in the city. He did not want to do that, saying that he hadn't moved, the city had moved. Mayor Lee stayed in his seat, and the result was chaos. The council would meet, but no action was taken. And at one point, there was talk of having the police chief force the mayor from his seat. The mayor sued the city in Carroll County, where the Superior Court upheld the council's vote. Lee then appealed his case all the way to the Supreme Court, where his removal was upheld. That was a period of political turmoil for the city. The council would fire the police chief during a council meeting, only to have him rehired the next day. The city could not meet its payroll obligations and would need to borrow the money each month to keep the city operating. We've come a long way from those days. That does not mean we've had no drama here, but through the mayoral terms of Jay Collins, Jeff Reese, and myself, we have not seen that level of conflict. For 20 years, in fact, Villa Rica has steadily and responsibly grown from 4,000 people to now nearly 19,000. The pushback of the 1980s annexation was unfortunate. Think of what and where our city could be if none of that conflict had happened. Think of the opportunities that were lost. Had we followed the trajectory set then, our city would now be the largest city in West Georgia, an economic powerhouse, empowered to guide our own destiny. The 20 years of quiet, competent growth we have shared has inspired confidence in newcomers to build their lives here. It has meant adding more than $1 billion to our local tax base. It has given us the opportunity to grow carefully and avoid the problems our neighbors have faced. When I came to office, I said the days of Villa Rica being the red-headed stepchild were coming to an end, and they have. We now sit at the grown-ups table. We have implemented West Georgia's first tax allocation district, requiring development to pay for itself, adding new routes for commerce and first responders, providing a more walkable community, and raising the prospects for all our people. We have continued to build a highly skilled workforce by raising the salaries and benefits to attract more qualified applicants. We've raised police starting pay and continue to offer more incentives to retain officers. Those who are motivated by civic pride to seek office in Villa Rica have a great responsibility to the public. If we are to continue to have a seat at the grown-up table of power in our region, we must all be the grown-ups when challenges arrive. All of us at this dais have met many challenges together, but you must meet the next challenges without me. The next major challenge will be whether to maintain the course we set together with our current city manager. Together, we have met and overcome many challenges, but there is still more to do, a lot more to do. We all work for the people, and our jobs are always temporary. We may come and go, but the institutional knowledge gained by our city manager cannot be understated. Being elected means you have been selected by your city to make hard policy decisions. The city manager works for the council, not the mayor. Over the last couple of weeks, and more intensely in the last few days, council member after council member have come to me and asked me what it will take to keep Tom Barber. I know many of you have personally asked him not to leave. I've been asked if there is a dollar amount. I would remind everyone that Tom Barber has never once asked for an increase in pay, even as every salary study has shown his position to be underpaid by more than 25%. He cares about this city, and leaving with so many projects underway goes against his nature. I know his office is cleaned out. He has stated his intention is to leave. He has other job offers. But I believe, as I am sure you believe, that given the numerous challenges our city faces, there is no one better suited to the job than Mr. Barber. His encyclopedic knowledge of all the work underway, all the projects being undertaken by the city staff, all the challenges on the horizon is irreplaceable. It should not be taken lightly that the city has nearly 24 projects underway, which include commercial, industrial, and residential developments that will see some 4,000 homes and 8,000 to 12,000 new residents in the next 24 months. Every project has a development agreement that has been negotiated over many months or years. The ability to hold those developers to account for the commitments they made will rest with having competent, familiar staff in place. Losing that institutional knowledge is exactly how developers get away with not complying with the agreements they made. The consequences can be disastrous for a city. If you don't believe me, just ask the residents of Liberty Point, or Charleston Place, or Old Town Village, or the many others that are still trying to recover from the loss of institutional knowledge in the city that led to a failure to enforce development agreements. Chaos in leadership also means chaos in the ranks. Those on the council know better than anyone the quality of the city staff Mr. Barber has assembled and the loyalty he commands among them. Imagine the chaos if he were to leave before his work here is done, or is at least at a manageable transition point. I've heard some critics have said Mr. Barber overestimates his value to this city. We all know it's the critics who underestimate his value. This office was always temporary. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks, but I'm not leaving Villa Rica. Winston Churchill said democracy is the worst form of government, except all the rest. Elections have consequences, but that does not have to be a negative statement. This is the place I was born and where I'm raising my sons. For nearly 50 years, I've not given up on Villa Rica, and Villa Rica has not given up on me. From the housing projects to the mayor's office, I've lived a life here that I'm proud of. I must leave it to this council to stand firmly for responsible growth, lest it runs over all of us. I know that you will remember that this is a city for everyone, not just the minority who fear change or who fail to see the potential of a city they profess to love. I want to thank Tom and Sarah. Even though she has moved on to bigger opportunities, I want to thank them for all they have taught me over the years and for everything they could to make my time as mayor a better experience for us all. Tom has made my life miserable at times and less miserable at times. While we don't know each other outside of City Hall, our working relationship worked for us. We built a collaborative working relationship, and the city was better for it. I want to personally thank you for the countless hours of dedication you have given this city. In the years to come, our names may fade, but the foundation we have built will help sustain the city for decades. I want to thank the many staff members who made my job as mayor more enjoyable. Without your dedicated service, this city would be a very different place. I'll take the next few weeks to evaluate my next steps, but I will be forever grateful to the people of Villa Rica who gave me this opportunity to serve. Change has always been the story of Villa Rica. Some will resist, but the change is inevitable. There is no other town named Villa Rica in the entire United States. We have a unique place in West Georgia and a unique destiny to fulfill the vision of our founders, to grow, to prosper, and to make the most of our own lives. I wish everyone well as we all move into the new year, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
There's a song that we sing, may the work I've done speak for me. So when you're resting in your grave, know there's nothing can be said. May the works I've done speak for me.
Amen. Thank you. All right.
Wow. It's been an honor working for you, with you, and awesome speech, and it's just been my honor to work for Tom, you, this council, and y'all are a blessing, and I just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. All right.
Now, Tom's got to follow that.
Tom, do you want to do a...
No, I handed out
I thought so.
update.
Would any council member like to be recognized before we go into an executive session? All right. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
And it needs to be for the two purposes, actually. One, to meet, discuss, deliberate upon disciplinary action of a public officer or employee is one of the reasons. The other is pursuant to the attorney-client privilege to confer with legal counsel.
So moved.
All right. I have a motion from Mr. Carter for the purposes stated by the city attorney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Moffett. All in favor? All right. We'll be in executive session.
Say it is 9:30.
All right, we are coming back up. Can I get a motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. McCoy and a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. We are returning from executive session. We have two items of business to report on.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there were two items that were discussed in executive session. One was the replacement of the solicitor. As you recall, our solicitor has resigned and we need to replace the solicitor's position come January 1st. And the motion is to offer the position to Robert James Harker.
All right, who will make that motion?
So I'll make it.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. That is a one-year position. Mr. Mecklin, is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
And the second item that came before the council in executive session that's going to be discussed here in open session is a motion that I understand that Mr. Carter is going to make.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Villa Rica stating the intention to utilize investigative powers of the City Council of the City of Villa Rica.
All right.
And Mr. Mecklin will read that resolution.
Is Mr. Mecklin going to read the resolution?
I don't think I volunteered to, but I'll do it to the extent that you're telling me to. Whereas the Villa Rica City Council serves as the legislative authority of the City of Villa Rica as codified in City Charter Section 2.10, and whereas the legislative authority, the council has all powers and responsibilities granted to the legislative authority by Georgia Code, City Charter, and the Villa Rica City Code of Ordinances. And whereas in City Charter Section 2.14 provides the council may make inquiries and investigations into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any department, office, or agency thereof, and for this purpose may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, take testimony, and require the production of evidence. And whereas on or about December 12, 2023, the mayor and council have become aware of information that former Ward 3 council member Leslie McPherson may have violated the city charter by disclosing confidential information concerning the property, government, or affairs of the governmental body by which he or she is employed without proper authorization or use such information to advance the financial or other private interest of himself or others. This accusation arises from the alleged disclosure of confidential privileged information obtained by McPherson during an executive session for the purpose of discussing potential litigation pursuant to the attorney-client privilege and provided by Georgia Code Section 50-14-2, parenthesis 1. The meeting otherwise required to be open was closed to the public in order to consult and meet with legal counsel pertaining to pending or potential litigation, settlement claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions brought or to be brought by or against the agency or any other officer or employee, or in which the agency or any officer or employee may be directly involved in the matter discussed. And whereas the city charter provides that no elected official, appointed officer, or employee of the city or any agency or political entity to which this code of ethics applies shall knowingly disclose confidential information concerning the property, government, or affairs of the governmental body by which he or she is employed without proper authorization, or use such information to advance the financial or other private interest of himself or others. Section 7 thereof, penalties for violation. Any city officer or employee who willfully conceals such financial interest or willfully violates any of the requirements of this section shall, upon conviction, be guilty of malfeasance in office or position and shall be deemed to have forfeited his or her office or position. Any officer or employee of the city who shall forfeit his or her office or position as described in subsection A shall be ineligible for appointment or election to or employment in a position in the city government for a period of 3 years thereafter. Whereas the council has an obligation to protect the interest of its citizens, including investigating matters that may have ethical or legal ramifications or result in cost funded by taxpayer dollars and the treatment of employees or any abuses of power. The council may hire or contract with competent attorneys, legal research assistants, and/or third parties on terms it considers appropriate, which includes the authorization to pursue other potential violations that may be discovered in the course of this investigation. And whereas the investigatory ability of the council facilitates transparency, accountability, and limits exposure of the city and its citizens by identifying facts pertinent to the matter at hand. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Villa Rica City Council of the City of Villa Rica, Georgia, Section 1, City manager and city attorney are directed to oversee the investigation by an outside authority requested to investigate the events surrounding the executive session of January 11, 2022. By this resolution, the council invokes the authority granted to it under state law and the city charter to compel the attendance of witnesses and the production of documents and other records and evidence by subpoena if necessary. Section 2, the council will direct that the city attorney report the findings to all members of council no later than 120 days after the passage of this resolution. Section 3, the city attorney may elect to hire or contract with competent attorneys and legal research assistants on terms it considers appropriate. Appropriations or salaries of competent attorneys, legal research assistants, and/or third parties employed may not exceed the appropriations for similar salaries in the budget of the city attorney. Section 4. The council fully intends to exercise all authority granted under state law and the city charter. If a person refuses to testify or produce evidence during the investigation conducted under this resolution, the council may order the city attorney to immediately present to any competent court a written report of the facts relating to the refusal. The court shall hear all questions relating to the refusal to testify or produce evidence and shall also hear any new evidence not included in the report. If the court finds that the testimony or evidence sought should be given or produced, it shall order the person to testify or produce the evidence or both. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its approval by the members of the council. That is the reading of the proposed resolution.
All right, have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? All opposed? That is unanimous. Do we have any other business?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Carter to